I feel safe with you, the heart spoke. Take me somewhere, not the old place, somewhere new, where age is unknown and time not arrived, the mind not imagined, and the real me, like pure life, with no needs or desires, the original quest, flowing along its perfect destiny. Self fears. The self fears rejection, confrontation, or sublime ascension, a mighty idea, rightening reality, perfect destiny, feared by identity, separation, differentiation, and all other dualities, completing their journey beyond self and soul, beyond hope and fear, or whatever considered far or near. The self lives in fear and sorrow, and the soul simply celebrates.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. We're all the same, each one of us, at all times. And no two moments are the same. And no two beings are ever the same, at the same time, and in no time. So the issue really appears a very perplexing one, a very complex one. The human challenge seems to be unsurpassable. But in reality, it's all to do with the multiple layers of shades and shadows which indicate the light that makes those shadows or gives them a semblance of reality for a while. All of it is transitory. No matter how much you desire goodness, wellness, health, harmony, contentment, it will always be short-lived. So you're always on notice, and yet you're questing constantly the touchstone, the reference point of utter contentment without reason. Every one of us is questing the same thing, and it's not a thing. It is to do with the infinite moment. It's to do with the sacred presence. It's to do with divine grace. It's to do with that infinitude that is the cause of life in individual beings and life itself, not subject to identity or beginnings or ends such as birth and death. We are all the same. If you don't really see that sameness, then your identity with yourself, with your biography, is the hindrance of higher sight and insights. Sight is a metaphor for insight. Your life, my life, his life, her life, is a metaphor, an entry point to life itself. Life itself is not definable. It's part of that mystery that some people call mysticism or Sufism or any other name. All what it means is that what we are questing to experience life in its infinitude, all what that means is that I am experiencing my limitations, my biography, the day and night, and all of the changes that take place in our day-to-day, minute-to-minute environment. And yet, I want to have the certainty that doesn't change. So all of us are seekers of contentment. But how long will it last? You are in pain. Your first and most important priority is to reduce that agitation. Why do you want to have less pain? Why do you want to have less anguish? Why do you want to have less concern, fear, worry, or anxiety? Who brings about fear and worry and anxiety upon you? Who's doing it to you? Why do you allow it? So that you're all the time running in response to it. What are the driving forces in life? These are important issues that have preoccupied human beings from before time. What we know is very recent, in basically the dawn of history, maybe 10, 15,000 years ago. We know early humans have always had a quest. And amongst the earliest landmarks were places where worship used to take place, or some form of pilgrimage. So there were big stones or special areas near big mountain or a cave or a river or whatever. We know that from the earliest time that we can recall, before even settlements took place in villages and agriculture, that there was a drive towards a higher level of consciousness. It was not just dwelling, a bit of shelter and a bit of food and comfort and ease of survival. There was something else beside survival. You are in a place which is very interesting at this time and age we are living in this world, that there is a very strong civic and human consideration of the other. There's a very deeply entrenched culture of law and order in Scandinavia. Then what? We have established as good a situation for human dwelling. But you know, as soon as you put it up, it needs maintenance, or you need maintenance. As soon as it's born, it's one day closer to death. And what is it that takes away from us all the time this most desirable state we call contentment? Who is it that is content in you? Who is it that is not content in you? We need a very basic sketch as to who are we. What are these dualities, the up and the down, and the good and the bad, and the hot and the cold, and the rough and the smooth, and. Contentment is the door, the entry point, the waiting room for the house of happiness. You have to enter that before, until you realize actually it's part of the home of happiness. And that's each one of us is driven for that. And ask anybody, what is the description of happiness? You find the majority will start with a list from the outer, physical, material, chemical, discernible, to the subtler. So they start saying, if only my knee doesn't hurt me so much. So it's avoidance of pain. If only my husband doesn't nag me so much, or something, or my boss, or whatever. If only the weather improves because I've been planting and it seems as though the season is coming to an end. If only, if only, if only. What is it you want? You want harmony in the movement of improvement towards a state that you have no needs. So the quest of contentment means you are knocking at doors at entries, at windows, that will take you to a zone that you have no anxieties to fulfill needs or wishes or desires. Is that possible? Has anybody experienced that tranquility of real contentment while still awake and active for any duration of time? As soon as you seem to be on that zone of ease, comfort, losing yourself, not being concerned too much about your mind and its impact and your local consciousness. Every one of us have a touch of consciousness, which we call life. And consciousness is a spectrum. It begins with a movement, with a vibration, and on and on and on until you find it appears as very simple life, the one cell or the bacteria, and then the complex one, much more programmed in a manner that is most intricate. The algorithms are incredibly complex, the frog, and then the horse, and then the human. So consciousness is a spectrum. With us as human beings, every one of us looks at the world outside, at the sun, at the others, at the sound, through the senses, your hearing, your seeing, your touch, your smell, 5 senses, which are already conditioned. Your senses, my senses, they are already conditioned consciousness. And yet we love to explore. What is traveling or investigating or studying or knowledge other than widening your sphere of consciousness? So you and I and he and she are all conditioned, limited consciousness, which is part of the spectrum of cosmic consciousness, divine consciousness, any other name you like to give it, pure consciousness, consciousness with no content, pure consciousness. We are limited consciousness, acknowledging its origin. It's very loyal, very honest. So it says, look, I am part of infinite consciousness. So if you want to be in balance, you need to have that reference all the time. Your conditioned consciousness, which is full of values and attributes and vices and virtues, not good, not the right way. What do all these values mean? Why do everybody have changing values in their life? This was very important yesterday, but not now. What happened? I thought you tried to be consistent. But you said, no, yesterday and now are different, so you've confused me now. How do these comparisons and these values come and go and occur? That's why no 2 moments are the same. No 2 people are ever the same. If you really want to know the miracle of miracles, that no 2 people are killing themselves all the time, or at least not you yourself not being at war within yourself all the time. At war with who? There are 2 sides of you. One is that of identity and the so-called you, with some skills, some knowledge, some background, some color, some cultures, whatever. And the other you, which is connected with life itself. If that lifeline was not in you, the conditioned you, the limited you, the so-called you, the self, so to speak, or the lower self, or the human self, will not be functional. But is that all? Are you content with just being a human? Eating, sleeping? Young people call that boring. They say, it's not interesting. I want to get out. My family is very limiting. My culture, my religion is too stifling. I can't do it. I'm going to reinvent myself. Someday, somewhere, somehow, I will be discovered. You know? Most young people think they've not been discovered as yet. And they're very, very special. And yet everybody knows that they're also very ordinary. Think of the dead body. It's very ordinary. You actually want to bury it, cover it, and have some memorial something and forget it. So how do you reconcile this? You need to have a very basic sketch as to who are you, where are you, what are you, where is it, who is it. And so reconciling the local issue, the you, with the universal reality, the it. And they are not separate. So contented life implies the knowledge of the driving forces in life. Otherwise, you're just aspiring for some romantic notion, fantasizing, yeah, I will discover the secrets of life. This is mystical, and we are this and we are that. All what it means is that I am ignorant, so I call it mystical. It's a spectrum of consciousness. At the highest level, all is known in depth and in width. At the lowest level, it is autonomic. It's just self-organizing. One thing leads to the other, and then suddenly you find some new creature comes about. So how do we reconcile this duality of the so-called I and the real I, the so-called we and the real we? Infinite dualities, pluralities, interplaying, emanating from unity, sustained by the same force, returning back to that original unity. Every one of us wants to have access to a field of energy that gives you total contentment. How can I be content without understanding? How can understanding be unless it's based on knowledge? What is knowledge other than the unified force or field of reality itself? Same as love. What is love other than that unifying field of entities, people, situations that seem diverse, but they unify and connect? All of these terms imply some sort of a passage, path, drive towards source and origin. Every human being wants to know where were they from. Everybody would like to have some sort of an RNA or whatever test, so as you know, yes, you know, really your ancestors have come from so and so, so and so you are. And of course, if there are people or situations which are considered of value, you like to advertise it, you know. Yeah, I am a direct descendant of Charlemagne. But if your genealogy only ends up at 200 years with some sort of a gangster, you don't like to talk about it. No, that was a mistake. You know, don't look at them. That's not right. Every one of us likes to be a hero. And every one of us is scared of zero. And the hero and the zero are inseparable, ever. That's why we build them up, make him into the father of the nation, and then of course you need the mother of the nation, and then you need the flower of the nation, and the bird of the nation that you don't cook in the oven, or at least not openly, because it's the bird of the nation, you can't. And the football of the nation, and on and on and on and on. We are all the same, limited, conditioned, disturbed, and many, many a time also anxious, yearning for total, unconditional tranquility. What does that mean? It means you are two. One part of you is yourself, which has got connections to the past, it has physical features, biological links, incredible complexities of biochemical movements, thousands of hormones in you, and your autonomic system, which simply says you are not trustworthy. Your autonomic system declares that you, as a human being, you cannot be trusted. You do not value life as much as the value of life is. So once a point of heat reaches your nervous system and so on, your finger withdraws from the flame automatically. Your heart keeps on beating. And if it doesn't, you have to have an artificial also device to keep it going. Ongoing, ongoing. And yet you love to lose yourself in deep sleep. How do you reconcile this? I mean, that's a huge war. Every one of us is a war machine. One part wants to get places. I am succeeding. I am growing. I'm getting somewhere. I'll show you, mommy or daddy or biography or whatever. I'll show you. One day you'll be surprised. I really have got somewhere. I'm very special. And yet when you are alone in your bathroom, and a bit of honesty, you say you are very ordinary, decrepit, and in fact a decaying hulk. So how do you reconcile this? Well, one moment you are hoping to be an acknowledged, great whatever, awakened person, left his or her mark. There are even 2 universities after your name, or a regiment in the army as it was until a few decades ago, or if you are unfortunate enough, a doctor who have discovered the most dreadful disease, and your name will remain with that disease. I mean, that's really an awful situation to be in. You see, so how do you reconcile this wretched, decaying, confused being with a relentless drive towards the perfection in now, the timelessness from which time emerges? You need to bear in mind the major forces in life. And these are, one of which, to do with a jama, to do with original connectedness, to do with singularity, from which zillions of dualities have emerged. The force in each one of us to connect. From that force, hundreds of other streams emerge, such as the love to belong. In the political sphere, there's a lot of issues on that. Not quite fully imbibed our culture. So separate them a bit. And then later you have greater problems if you have, these ghettos. Because you want them to be assimilated. You have no option other than drive towards oneness. We are one people. We're the same people. We have the same language. We're the same church or the same mosque. The major force to connect. Our origin was not separation. If there is any starting point of injustice, it begins with the baby, seeing itself or herself separate from the mother or from source of life. Once it begins to see a separation, the mind begins to develop the so-called personality. It becomes very clever. So, and also it wants to minimize energy. You don't need to scream all the time. You need to tap on the crib or something so the mother comes running. Whatever. We're very clever because we have all the other cleverness of numerous animals and their system within us. The force to connect as wide as possible, as deep as possible, each one of us. We're connecting at every level of the main elements in life and the basic substances in life: water, air, earth, and fire. And without the electrons zooming in their billions within us, you won't be alive. Without the billions of neurons all over, I would be deficient. This amazing cosmic instrument, which has emerged over billions of years, to actually resonate with all what there is in the near and in the far, is the most sublime reality, which has in it the physics, the chemistry, biology, the physiology, all of the other things. So you are actually a walking miniature cosmos, which resonates with infinite time and with finite time. So you stretch along this spectrum of consciousness to connect. I know him, I know them, I know the language, and now we've been there, we've exercised silence, we were at war together. Whenever you are near enough to death, the bonding becomes stronger. That's why if a nation is too bifurcated and disturbed, have a war and they all get together. Why? Because the most precious thing in life is life itself. So when your life is threatened, that connection is at a very deep level. Equally, if you are able to celebrate life itself, that connection is at a very deep level. So either at the basic survival, you connect deeply, or at the light of arrival, equally. So connection is a major force in life. We all want to connect, and connection can occur through cause and effect being together. Oh, I know this, I know that. Now I can immediately tell you it is late summer because I've already heard the harvester and this and that. Connect with time and space, with your past, with your memory, and your present. The other major force is to continue. Anything that exists wants to continue, because it's a reflection of life itself, which is ever continuous. So even your mistakes, you will carry on to repeat them. Even your anger, even your phobias, your anxieties, it becomes your habit. So it becomes closer and closer circle until it gets to the dot from which everything emanates and to which everything returns. So continuity gives rise to numerous cultural habits. The annual parade, or the annual harvest festival, or this or that. Every year we do that. Every year we go to this piece of stone like maniacs to run around it as though we are now very clever. So we say this is pilgrimage. And you designate it as a sacred space or place. Where is it that's not sacredness? How can there be time unless it emanates from timelessness? How can you and I and every one of us want to become unless you're also being at the same time? Your becoming is only a little exercise, like a hamster on a wheel, to realize that the being within you, life, cosmic life itself, manifesting as your life with its limitations and conditioning, driving you. So continuity. If you really reflect upon this deeply, you find that your love for anything that you love to continue is only a reflection of life in you that will ever continue. You begin to realize that death was a mental condition in order to drive you to the origin that is ever present now. Life itself. Human beings are the most dishonest and the most fickle beings. All the animals are in us. So the foxiness and this and that and the other. وَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرَ اللَّهُ. All of it comes from the original source of deception. Why deception? Your life is a deception. Your illusion that you are this, that, and the other, and you have a CV is a deception. It's a play. That's why you can change it. The Quran declares beautifully that life on earth is nothing other than a play and a game and a sport. What does it mean? A game is a pretense that it is real and it's very important. We take it seriously. But in reality, it's a game. And it begins with fun. Until you become an international celebrity, then you need an army of lawyers and accountants, because now you have got all kinds of cultural baggages and other things that makes money for you and all of that. So you become a brand name. So you have a tiny little pencils after you, or a tennis racket, or a whatever, or a football is named after you. It's all to do with the truth that this apparent reality, you, I, he, and she, is an indicator of a perpetual reality. And if you are religious or spiritual or whatever you call it, God, or whatever, He is everywhere. But generally speaking, you start by putting him or her somewhere far. That's why often when you refer to God, you lift yourself, God, and you lift your head. But what he means, he's not down there. So what sort of a deficiency is that he's mostly up, not down? Maybe you know that the center of the earth is very hot, or whatever. Continuity is a major drive in our life. That's why you always ask, will I be all right? Will they still love me? Yeah. This wonderful Moroccan Shaykh who stole the king's robe from the bathroom, public baths. So they caught him selling it in the bazaar. So the king comes to him and said, but look, I am an admirer of you as a great being. Why didn't you ask me to give you this cloak? They caught you now, you are in disgrace, you have to go to prison. He said, no, that's exactly what I wanted. I didn't want the cloak. I wanted the outcome of this action so as people ran away from me. Because I had no more time for myself. Everybody thought that I have something that they want. And I got no time for myself to do my salat, my reflection, so I needed to do something for the people to say, no, he's not real. He's yet another false teacher. There is no such thing. Truth is the driving force behind all falsehood. Everything you see is a transitory thing. It changes. And therefore you can call it a lie. But within that lie lies a spark of truth. That's the meaning of wherever you turn is the manifestation or the presence of God, of Allah. So appearing as this thing coming, going, winter, summer, hot, cold, human, animal, good, bad, vice, virtue. So continuity is deep in every psyche. You want it to continue. The most treasured thing in everybody's life is life itself. What value do you give it? So, and the third major force is consciousness itself, life itself, which you and I call my life. Where did you get it from? Where is your contract? We all know also legally a contract becomes binding if there is an indication as to its termination or durability. So you say, no, I don't have much more left of my life. What does it mean? Years, I've not had enough. No. Can I prolong it more? Then of course you care for so-called longevity or any other method to prolong your experience. But by the time you are in your 40s, 50s, other elements of suffering comes in, and more complex fears, and more complex ways of feeling sorry and sorrow, and grief comes in. It's a diminishing return. You just look at your dental bills by the time you are 60s. You'll be horrified. What for? to munch more. I mean, isn't that enough what you have done? So, of course, some people become so apologetic and they don't want even to come out, you see. Quite much better than those who are boisterous and self-confident, you know. So my child was so scared and so self-effacing, but we don't know what happened in the last 20 years. Now he is so self-confident that he or she thinks that he is the only creature ever living, and everything else must be subservient to it. Everybody wants to play God. These are the dangers of people who want to wake up. So these are the three major forces: consciousness, continuity, and connection. Each one of us wants to awaken to the fullness of connectedness. Do you know you are connected with the first manifestation of life on earth? Do you know that in truth there is only truth? Do you know that the nature of time is timelessness? Do you know that death is only a tiny little shadow of the cosmic perfection of life itself, which is ever continuous? These are the basic sketches we need to look at. So you have a very simple atlas to refer to. So as you know, where are you now? Of course you are in a situation now because you were ill for a long time. You need now to move on, a bit more exercise, get back to the routine of day-to-day life, eating and washing. So you need to read, where are you on the map? Or have you driven yourself to the point of collapse? Why? Because of your ambition. You want to be a multitasker, do everything at the same time. Why? Because you want to be content. But the more ambitions you have, the more certain that you will be more discontent. So how are you going to balance it? If you are not ambitious, if you have no interest in life, you're dead. The mother's anxiety is to get the baby excited with noise, with racket, with music, and all of the other things. So the child is investigating, exploring, running, and every now and then also having an accident, and on and on and on. What for? The mother or the father can see themselves in the child growing. It's the same, with a slight variation in time. That's all. 100 years ago, there was greater anxiety about survival. How do you store the food? How do you do this? And then we came up with the industrial agriculture and so on. And as a result, the population began to explode in the world. From just over 100 odd years ago, from 1 billion to over 7.5 plus billion. So the survival mode in which your parents or your grandparents had a priority is no longer. Now you want experiences. Now I haven't been to that part of southern Argentine. I'd like to go and explore that. And of course you go there and make a record of it. You think you are the only person, Robinson Crusoe, and you have all these, documents about your life. And look, here I am hanging and bungee jumping here on top of, on and on and on. But you like to connect. As a child, you like your parents to see you. And one of the big issues in boarding school is that. They have the sports day, and this little Peter had been excelling. But he wants the mother to see him. Mommy, did you see me? Mommy, am I your hero? Am I not better than my father? On and on. And then you go, of course, to the analyst. They say, oh, yes, of course. They give it names again. This is this effect, this is that effect. Then what? You have analyzed, you have synthesized, then what? You found you have got 900 different names that have got an aspect to do with, mental so-called unusual abnormality, whatever, or physical, or historical, or genetic, then what? Then what? Are you going to be more content by having these names and things around you? Or your album of memories or traces you have left? I'm such a great do-gooder. Look, there are so many things after my name or after our family. It's not that difficult in Sweden, especially with common names of, Hansen and Manson. Everybody is Hansen. So you have a very strong connection. Yeah. So ranging from leatherworks to cheese under your names. Really, you must laugh how ridiculous is this human self is. And yet it demands self-respect. They didn't respect me enough. They didn't know who I am. But do you know who you are? You're changing. You're not the same as you were asleep. You were much more peaceful when you were asleep. Now you're noisy. Really? No, they didn't know who I am. No. Nobody knows who you are. These are key issues that illustrate the duality of nature of conditioned life. Our life is conditioned. No two moments are the same, no two people are the same, no two cultures, It's conditioned. But conditionality stems from another wider, deeper zone of cosmic reality. And that's your soul, that's your ruh, that's your spirit. That is God's light in you. The most valuable thing ever. All of our attention is for that valuable thing. Quality of life, quality of life, quality. What does quality of life means? Exactly your title for this gathering, contentment. You want to have a quality of life that is peak, pinnacle, and that's ultimate contentment. Ultimate contentment with life itself, with God himself or herself, with reality itself. Not just content with what you have done. Your life as a conditioned being is damage limitation. There is no win-win possibility in it whatsoever. The self is a shadow that indicates the light of the soul. So if you look at yourself as a changing shadows, initially you say less ego, less of me, be more generous. All religious paths advocate serving, helping, giving. So there is less egocentricity. But don't condemn the ego. The ego was the tipping point from where you begin to turn from I, only I, to it, only it. So don't denounce it. It was the cause of your suffering in order for you to turn to the cosmic offering. All of us are the same. But we have work to do in order to get to that point, unlike the animals. Most animals have different degrees of consciousness. The lion with his cubs, so gentle, so licking beautifully, hugging, milk giving. And the same lion can switch on. That really protective mother can devour and can bite on anything that interferes with its love of continuity of its offspring. So all of us are conditioned, yearning to get to the zone of utter perfection which is ever present. You can think of these perfections or imperfections or vices or virtues as fields of energies. Why do we love to be generous? Why is it considered as a good virtue? Why is patience considered to be a good virtue? Why is having less self-concern considered a virtue? They all lead to the highest level of utter contentment, not for any reason. It begins with a reason. I'm content because the pain in my foot is less, or my concern about my survival or my what is less. Moves on and on until you reach a point that contentment is like a field of energy, like a tent, that you enter it, you have entered it. But how do you get that technology? For that you need a clear description and a prescription. From it comes your transformation. You are the same as you were, but more, in such a way that what you were becomes like a trace in your memory. Yes, I was a father or a friend. Yes, that's true. But it's like a trace. It's like the old photographs that they fade away. They become sepia, and of course, other creatures eat it and gone. It's just this, I think I was there. Yeah. Who are you talking about? Like Bistami, when they were asking, he said, I'm looking for him. Where is he? It's like that also. Who are you? But of course, we want to reinforce the past. So you make documents, you make recordings, you make albums, you make placards, and so on. So the main issue is to realize we have work to do. We have a responsibility here towards who? Responsibility, if you have a bit of a religious tendency, towards God. What a needy God is it that everybody has to do this and that to please this God? I mean, how much offerings do you do this God? Man? It's endless. What? And this tiny little earth of ours. Where else is it? You and I and every one of us need to read, Iqra, read the situation. Read where you are along this amazing spectrum of reality or consciousness. The beginning of visible life emanating from life itself, which never ends. So we need to unify my life, this most incredible attachment I have to it, or obsessed by it, to obsession itself. That's where passion comes in. That is where unconditional love is the ultimate driving force. Conditional love is a business, is a trade. I like you, give me this and I give you that. You reassure me, no, it's not so bad, I'm all right. Even my mother didn't necessarily love me so much, but others loved me and so on. And so on and so on. And of course, if you had a brother or a sibling or someone else whom you would know that the mother loved him or it more, that's a big thing now. You really need to be under the control of other head shrinkers or other idiots. Under therapy, perpetual therapy, endless therapy. Now you need the whole world to sympathize with you. Don't you know I am under therapy? Now make special allowance for me. Let me be in the head of the queue. I am disabled. Although I'm running the marathon of disabled, but here, you have to. Otherwise, I'll make you feel guilty. That's one of the Swedish issues, feeling guilty, you see, because they have it so easy and so simple. And then what? You have everything organized. People are law-abiding. They have a clear Sharia, unlike a fantasy, some Sharia that everybody wants to connect. But then what? Where is the celebration? And celebrating what? To begin with, you start celebrating ignorance, my stupidity, my idiotic ambitions. And then you begin to laugh. And then you celebrate the immensity of the present moment, from which everything that you experience emerges. So then you are alive. You have some traces of the past, some understanding of whatever the culture, the color, the religion, but more than that, you're completely in the moment. That is your soul. That is the condition of your own source of life, the plug that you are connected with. So the work you have to do, apart from all the other superficial works, duty towards your people, your neighbors, your country, your friends, it's towards understanding how things work, skills, all of these are necessary, but not sufficient. You and I need to purposefully, according to a clear technology of reading it, connecting your life with life itself. Then your will is subservient to God's will. Then there is no longer failure and success. There is true access. Because whatever God's will prevail. And you and I would like to have that constant prevalence. We want victory, not half success, half failures. It's tedious. This is the way of the upside in and out of the worldly dualities. But are you only worldly dualities? Not good enough. A necessary start, insufficient. So, all of these dualities which challenge us come to that point of self-soul. You are this animal, you have a past, you have obligation, you have emotions, you have connectedness, you have to feed your body, you have to look after your microcosm, the little universe. But more than all of that, you need to be able to switch constantly to a zone in your own heart that is beyond contentment or discontentment. That is your soul. So ultimate contentment is the nature of your own soul. It's ever content. That's why it gives you love, life unconditionally. But you and I, as earthly beings, we are conditioned. So no, it's not the right thing. Don't be over there. Generosity up to beyond the point can have worse effects than meanness. So it's all balance, 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 balance. The world of duality is all based on balance. As for the zone of unity, it has no balance. With Allah, there is no good or bad. There's perfection only. Once it comes to the zone of mental appreciation, then it is Sharia. Then good, bad, appropriate, not appropriate, in time, not in time, and so on and so on and so on. Accountability. Your soul is beyond that. It is at a much higher zone of consciousness before the bifurcation of consciousness, the good and the bad. We all start with that. Not the right time. I screamed and the mother didn't come. I didn't. I applauded. No. So you want contentment. You want outcome. You want achievement. So you are all the time trying to improve on a situation that you are energized by pure light, by your own inner light, by divine light, by the grace of that cosmic source. That's all. The world we now experience is a result of thousands of years of constant comparison, fear, anxiety, and celebrating the occasional peace in between. And you're very fortunate where you are that it was many generations ago, the best part maybe of 200 years, that these people in these, what we call nowadays as Scandinavia, began to realize that we are all the same, we want to live well, we can share rather than be constantly at war. So all right, you are now have a slightly different flag, no more war with Norway, no more this and that. So there had been a period of care, of rise in consciousness, through studies, through reflections, through openness, exchange, discoveries, travel the world. So you are in a situation here, as in many other parts of the world, but it's quite obvious that in Scandinavia you have a very high level of civic quality of life. But why isn't there real cheerfulness then? Why isn't there a deep, deep, deep inner smile? What is it? It means that final bit, the most important bit, the key aspect of life has not been done. What is that? To know you are not who you think you are, without denying who you think you are. But that's minor. That's a starting point. Who you really are is a cosmic light, for a while experiencing how to put dualities and diversities into their original unity. That's all. So we have work to do. The foundation of that work is that your life, his life, her life, is not separate from life itself. Therefore, we revere it. So the same way as you were born physically, there is a spiritual awakening also. If you like, a birth into the eternal truth of the light in your own heart. For that you need some help. You need to be amongst friends, amongst like-minded, like-hearted people. And that is what in original Islam also refers to as rahmatan al-alameen. It's a mercy and a grace for all. We're all the same. It's a big miracle that all human beings at this time and age have emanated from the same source. It's an amazing thing if you think of it. The majority of people have 10 fingers. And the miracle of nails, how a very hard substance emerges from the softest tissues. I mean, that's enough for you to reflect upon 10 lifetimes. Really, but no, we are frivolous. We want big, meaning we don't want measures. Your soul and the love emanating from it is beyond measure. Yourself, your shadow, your identity is full of measures all the time. How much more? Is it less? This is the kindergarten that you and I will have to play in until you realize we had no such thing as freedom. We had no choice other than being obsessed with life itself, or God himself, or the source itself. So you then realize that in truth there is only that. And that's the foundation of La ilaha illallah. There is none other than that. It isn't I and God and I'm negotiating. How did this I-ness arise? Unless it's from oneness. So shame. So I've really been very charitable and I've done so much. Now it's my turn for God to do for me. What are you talking about? This is hallucination. This is spiritual garbage. So it is a very helpful tendency not to separate these higher aspects in life. Now it is very spiritual. Now it is very... They're inseparable. Matter and energy are not... They're at one. But they appear as part of their transformation and journey. And no, this is very solid, this is very more liquid, and this is this, that. And you're amazed as to how they all link. The same liquid water, when it is frozen, it is probably the biggest force in nature. Your country has got a lot of granite. What makes most of these huge, big granitic slabs to crack is water, frozen water inside the cracks. It expands. Can you imagine? And it's vapor. Its origin is the same. Incredible. It's the smallest atom, which is hydrogen, when you put two of them with oxygen. I mean, amazing, amazing, amazing. Every law has an exception. Every law. Usually anything that is cold becomes smaller because it's less active, less agitated electrons, except for water. When it freezes, it expands and it floats. I mean, it's a miracle. So, the ultimate source and way and methodology for contentment is to start where you are. Don't deny it. If you're in pain, express it and pray and ask for help. And genuinely want to have more harmony in your physical system. Because pain is a distraction from tranquility. Tranquility is one of the doors to contentment and peace and joy. All of these are byproducts of being content. You must always bear in mind that there is an element in you that can never be content. Because there is the appearance of others. I deliberately use the word appearance because there is no otherness. In reality, there is oneness. But there are others who are less endowed. So, what am I doing for them? How can I help others? And that is how I can get out of myself and to be more and more as a soul. So there is this personal, societal, individual and collective. So there is never such a thing in this world as you can call it total world contentment. And there can never be outer peace unless your inner war is correct. War against your ego, against your selfishness, against your fantasy, against your stupidity, against your not being in gratitude, against your not being able to say, my life was supposedly mine, but I now know it's never mine. So life is life. Now thank you very much, I'm going to die. Now, better don't do any of that now. It'd be very inconvenient for the organizers. You must be willing and honest to declare your bankruptcy, that you don't have anything of your own. As a 30-year-old, 40-year-old, you are a collector, more of this. We also have not only 2 summer houses here, we also have some miserable place in Spain or other places. But also after 5 or 6 days, the children start quarreling and this and that, and jealousies and fears. Unavoidable. Who are you trying to kid? You have the photograph, you have this thing, you have got your Facebook, but it's a disgraced face. No, but look how important I am. Look, everybody loves me. Look at my face. I have 10,000 people on my tweeting beat game. And yet you are not truly content. Are you the same if you have 10,000 friends as when you have no one? If you're not the same, then you have work to do. Because your soul is the same. Your spirit is the same. God's light in you is the same. And for that, as I said earlier, you need to be with similar, like-minded people. You need to accept your background, whatever it is. Your culture, your color, your religion, accept it. But you need to go to the point where that idea had the intention of taking you to. If your religion doesn't take you to ultimate contentment, then either you're not working it well or it's a false religion. As simple as that. If it doesn't clearly let you experience personally a zone that is beyond pleasure and pain, that is in itself joy itself. You can't give it to anybody because you got it by abandoning everything else, not by getting anything. You need to be able to read these maps. For that, you need to be able to truly trust in an atlas of life that will take you to such a narrow point that there is nothing anymore for you to get or gain. You're now at the zone of beingness. not becoming. Then you are a being who is worthy of being called truly evolved, awakened human being. And watch out for people who are on a spiritual path. They can be nastier than others. If you're truly at the level of existential trade and so on, there are simple rules and regulations, and you mustn't have monopoly, you mustn't be too abusive, and so on and so on. But what about spiritual thing? You know, he is a higher station. And of course, they have a lot of these Sufi terms. They were most applicable, useful, until a few generations ago. But now you are using terms in a culture that is so different from that. So it becomes like an elitist language. So it becomes one-upmanship. The more you use some of these Sufi goofy terms and so on, the more people tend to listen. Oh, you're really using him. He's mystical. What do you mean mystical? I'd rather have a beautiful mist on a beach than a mystical something. What are you talking about? We are coming to a zone in life that spiritual or religious one-upmanship is almost towards its end. Not yet. Towards its end. The winter of discontentment is not yet completely global. It's coming to it. From it will come also the other side, the positive side, of people who say, yes, I am this, I am that, and so on, and my role in life is this, I'm an engineer, but these are all outer engagements with social or economic life. But in reality, I know I am not separate from the one source that has it all within its grasp. That governorship, that divine perfection that permeates all on this tiny little earth. So put it in perspective. If you really want to truly awaken to boundless life within you, be honest that you had nothing, you didn't bargain for your life, and willing to at any minute, Bismillah, as it has come, it will go. But the truth neither comes nor goes, and that is what I've been yearning for. And all my practices was for me to say no, 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 la ilaha illa, until illallah shows itself to be the only reality. So your personal and your communal life, your individual and your human life, all of these resonate with the divine life itself. So your job, my job, his job, her job is to balance our humanity with divinity. Don't deny your humanity. You'll be denied that. But don't concentrate exclusively on that either, because it's endless. How much are you going to refine the regulation, and where is the boundary for that allowed? It's endless. So once you've got reasonable health, reasonable mind, reasonable comfort and ease, now you need to transcend your senses. That's why we want whatever we want, but we also want to go beyond them. Half of your life you've been collecting, see how things go together, match. And if the other half is not for you to allow the flow, then you are not truly balanced between the fine point between taking oxygen or being oxidated. It's all from the same thing. Antioxidant, but oxidant. You are human, divine. You're earthly, heavenly. Terrestrial, celestial. These are not just fancy words. They are indicators of the duality which camouflages and hides and screens the amazing power of unity. Too powerful. Life on earth is a metaphor of that. It took billions of years for the high intensity of even the sunlight alone, let alone the millions of other rays and what's coming from the outer atmosphere. All of that had to be stabilized enough for this life to be able to perpetuate itself and yielding eventually to the human life. Your life, my life, his life, her life is a metaphor of life itself. Our love for the garden on earth, everybody wants to have a garden, flowers, and we are little doers, we are little playing God. I leave this patch as rough and so on, I leave this patch for the birds. We are playing that. In order for you to emerge from this kindergarten, to realize that in truth, the light of the One is not separate from anything. It's just diluted to different levels, and the human soul seems to contain a much more complex, what you may term as a sacred life, or as a grace, higher grace than others. So in a way, we are, each one of us, a custodian or a steward for life. But until not long ago, we had such arrogance that we say the animals have no feeling. Put them in the lab and inject them. We said they are. Every plant, every seed, they all have their also language. But we don't hear it, we don't know it, but they are trying to perpetuate itself. Look at our food, we are all thieves. What are we eating? The seeds from what? The seed is a little package for continuity, for germination, for the thing to carry on. And here we play around, we make it, and we harvest it, and we eat it, munch, munch, munch. Really. Lack of awareness, lack of willingness to be accountable right now for all of your life. What mistakes we have done? Have you done your bit? The ancient thoughts of human beings had a great value, such as reincarnation, fear of hell, love for paradise and God. These are all wonderful metaphors, part of the atlas that you need to look at. Until such time, you know that the seed of paradise is actually in you. And the potential of a fire is also in its shadow, in the ego, in the lower self. So you stop trying to make that fire all the time. And you're not hankering also after the garden, because now you are getting tuned more and more to the source from which all of these dualities, good and bad, vices and virtues have emanated from. And you have to be honest where you are. You need to be more generous, be more generous. You have to be. Continue until such time you just act without knowing or feeling that you are now acting generously. You know it. Whether you're now playing this role of the generous person because you're expecting now to be acknowledged, or as part of your nature. And that's it. I am delighted to be with you here. I may change my mind by an hour, but right now I feel delighted to be with you. And I wish you the best, and I also would like to thank our friends who have been at it, enjoying it, doing it really. I express gratitude to everyone who takes a step towards the higher self, away from the lower self. This is evolution. This is also personal revolution, and they are not separate. Outwardly things evolve, sometimes very slowly, sometimes. But inwardly you have to be revolutionary. Watch out against all the animals in your zoo. Every now and then in some of these, especially these bankrupt countries, you find the despot, or when they all run away, poor animals, nobody's feeding them in the zoo. So watch out. You don't do that to your zoo. Keep them quiet, acknowledge them, and move on to the light that gives life to everything that exists known and unknown. Life is the manifestation of the divine presence. Be sensitive enough to it and enjoy it and share it. And don't pontificate. The worst thing, and you lose a lot by pulling ranks. You may have built up yourself, your conduct, your character. It's like climbing, with 5 minutes of forgetfulness, you can slip down, and even worse. This time you don't slip down, you also break your legs and other things. So watch out. Earlier on, to be vigilant, diligent, and accountable. Find other unfortunate people, say, is it all right? Do you think I am being too? Really find them. Of course, they try also to build it. No, you're very nice. You're doing very, very well. Why is it we want always to see the best of the best of the best? Because within you lies something beyond the best. Smile at that, with that, and be at one with that. Then duality will be fun. This is too salty, this is not too hot. It's fun, too. But if you're not constantly recalibrating with unity, with your own source, with your own life source in you, then it becomes disturbance, disturbing the peace. No, don't come more again. The more frequently you calibrate with the infinite in you, the more you can put up with the finite. That is the way of life. Good luck. Assalamu alaikum. All right, I need reassurance. Now, I don't know the shaking of the head is more Indian or more Western. Because different cultures have we must really smile at ourselves. You must cultivate more the spiritual sense of humor. Otherwise it becomes grim people, Also they have all kinds of paraphernalia. Thank God it's less and less. It used to be all kinds of headgear and this gear, tasbih gear. We're coming to a much more liberated zone, thank God. Please make noise now. Daima has a question. Oh, how wonderful, she's scared. I'm so glad. At least one person in her life made her. Thank you for all your help. And of course, Yaquta and everybody else. Thank you. You're very kind. Do more of it.
Thank you so much, Fadhlalla. It was wonderful to have you here in what we tend to maybe incorrectly call real life. So it's fantastic. I know you have indicated that you will hold a more informal session later on this afternoon. So I hope that everybody will be able to attend. If you have any questions, anything arisen during this talk, please note it down and hand it either to me or Abdul Hadi. And then we will pass it on to Shaykh Fadhlalla, so we can include that maybe or be aware of that when there will be more an informal session later on this afternoon after class at 5:15 or something like that. Now I think there is a little bit of free time, break time until the hall. So and then after that testimony Haeri will do a talk and the afternoon will continue. But please avail yourself of the wonderful place, the wonderful weather. It was forecast rain and look outside, it's just fantastic, blue sky. And really blessed in more than many different ways. Thank you so much.
Just to finish off, one more point for you.
Concealed deceptions. Asked about control, I knew the trick. Nothing. And then again, what do you want? My pretending smile concealed a million desires, some new, fresh, others ancient, lost in time. Then again, how much? The sky is vast, passions too, fireballs hidden behind rose bushes, truth within falsehood, polite friendly gestures, taught by a hyena, circus trained by robot monkeys, dressed up as guides and teachers, and other motivational preachers, or business leaders, or political appeasers, self-assured. Absorbed in the fog and darkness of everyday life, and other shades of ignorance, confused minds, dark hearts and delusions, announcing business as usual, we are a great success.
Bismillah. The only fun is when you know there is none other than the one. Good luck. Salam.